Welcome, students, to today's Explainer. Okay, let's dive right into this. We so often think of history as just this boring timeline of names and dates. But what if I told you the actual physical dirt beneath your feet basically dictates your destiny? Sounds crazy, right? But today, we're embarking on this fascinating investigation into exactly how the physical world shapes human society. And to do that, we're zooming in on one of the most famous civilizations ever, ancient Greece. So grab your notebooks because we're going to build some serious knowledge today. To keep your notes super clear and methodic today, I want you to use these 5 headings. First, the power of geography. Second, ancient Greece, 2 worlds. Third, social classes in Athens. Fourth, social classes in Sparta. And finally, number 5, the big connection. All right, let's kick things off with section 1, the power of geography. Before we travel back thousands of years to the ancient Mediterranean, let's just look at our world today to nail down a core concept. Picture the contrast between 2 completely different places. On one hand, you've got the pumpkin patches and silos of rural Pennsylvania. On the other, the towering skyscrapers of Wall Street in New York City. Think about the opportunities there. The jobs available on a massive farm are obviously vastly different from the ones packed inside a dense urban city. In Pennsylvania, you're going to need agricultural skills, machinery operators, people who manage the land. But in New York, that environment demands bankers, accountants, subway operators, high-rise construction workers. The setting completely changes the hustle. And that brings us to the guiding mystery we're going to solve today. I want you to write this exact question down in your notes right now. How does where you live change how you work? Because this isn't just a modern thing. This is literally a fundamental rule of human civilization. The environment you live in absolutely forces you to adapt, and that adaptation creates very specific types of jobs. So the crucial point is this kind of 3-step domino effect. Please make sure you copy this exact formula into your notebooks. Step 1 triggers step 2, which triggers step 3. Okay, it starts with geography, literally where you physically are. Are you on the coast, inland, in the mountains, flat plains? That dictates step 2, the economy. Basically, what industries and jobs can actually exist and thrive in that spot. And finally, that economy creates step 3, the social order. This is who does those jobs and how society ranks people based on that work. This domino effect is basically the master key to unlocking our understanding of the ancient world. Which brings us to part 2, ancient Greece, 2 worlds. Make sure you get that heading down. We're taking our modern theory and plunging straight into our historical case studies. Imagine looking at a physical map of the Greek world right around 500 BCE. The first thing you'd notice is just how fragmented it is. It's not one massive, uniform blob of land. No way. It's a crazy puzzle of islands, deep coastal inlets, and really rugged inland mountains. And because the physical environments of these different Greek regions were so wildly different, they couldn't possibly develop the same way. The geography literally forced them down completely different paths. Because of that very landscape, we see this huge, clear split. Coastal areas, right there on the water, naturally developed economies entirely based on the sea. They needed shipbuilders, maritime traders, and banking to finance those massive long voyages. But inland areas? Cut off from the super easy transport of the sea, they had to rely on the dirt. And here's a surprising fact for you. Those rugged Greek mountains made land travel so excruciatingly slow and difficult that carting goods overland was pretty much a nightmare. It was incredibly restrictive. So those inland economies were built strictly around local farming, toolmaking, and whatever short-distance transport they could pull off. 2 different geographies, 2 totally different economies. Moving right along to section 3, social classes in Athens. Go ahead and make a new heading in your notes for Athens. To really get Athens, you absolutely have to understand the trireme, and this brilliantly illustrates the connection between their environment and their power. Triremes were these incredible, standard ancient Greek warships. Think about it. A coastal economy completely focused on wide-reaching trade networks heavily relied on these ships. They needed them to protect their merchant vessels and project their power across the sea. But hey, ships don't sail themselves, right? They require an absolutely massive amount of specialized human labor. So let's methodically break down the Athenian citizen hierarchy. You'll want to jot these bullet points down. Right at the very top, you have the aristocrats. They own the largest states, dominated the government, and, this is crucial for our maritime economy, they captained those triremes. Just below them was the middle class. This group was made up of your small farmers, shopkeepers, and the merchants who were constantly buying and selling the goods flowing into the ports. And at the bottom of the citizen ranks were the thetes. These were the urban craftsmen, the laborers, and really the vital muscle of this whole coastal economy, the people who actually sat there and rowed followed the triremes. Notice how every single citizen class is directly tied to the sea or the trade it brings.
But here's the thing. Athens wasn't just made up of citizens. Their economy required so much labor that non-citizens had to step into highly specialized roles too. First up were the medics. These were free men who came from other places. Now, they couldn't own land, but the bustling coastal economy allowed them to totally thrive by trading, running businesses, and even owning their own merchant ships. And finally, there were the slaves. Treated as property, they filled in massive labor gaps. They worked incredibly specialized jobs, ranging from loading up ships as stockhands all the way to, and get this, acting as the city's policemen. Seriously, the Athenian police force was largely made up of enslaved archers. It just goes to show, a complex, diverse coastal economy creates a complex, diverse social order.
Now let's move to and see how this builds in Section 4, Social Classes in Sparta. Start a fresh heading here. We are turning our focus entirely inland now to see how a totally different geography created a wildly different society. And the absolute key to understanding Sparta is understanding a specific group of people, the Helots. Helots were conquered people who were treated as slaves. But pay close attention to the geography clue here. They were mostly taken from a neighboring region called Messenia. Why? Specifically because Messenia had fertile soil. Sparta's inland location meant their survival depended entirely on agriculture, not maritime trade. They needed land, and they needed people to farm it. So let's walk through how the Spartans' social classes stacked up. At the very top were the Spartiates. Unlike those Athenian aristocrats who were off captaining trading ships, Spartiates were strict, full-time military professionals living in barracks. Why? Well, because an inland agricultural economy relied completely on conquering land and then fiercely controlling a massive enslaved farming population. Below them were the Perioeci. Think of them as free outsiders who handled all the basic artisan and merchant work, mostly because the top class was literally too busy training for war all day. And at the absolute bottom were the Helots. This was the massive enslaved population that actually farmed the land and was forced to hand over half their produce just to feed the Spartiates. So a rigid agricultural economy basically created an incredibly rigid, militaristic social order. All right, we've made it to our final part, Section 5, the big connection. It's time to bring all your notes together to see the big picture. Let's summarize this explainer by comparing our two city-states side by side. On one side, we have Athens. Its coastal geography created an economy driven by trade and shipping, and that, in turn, required a really diverse, specialized social hierarchy of merchants, captains, and rowers. On the other side, we have Sparta. Its inland, fertile geography demanded an economy based purely on agriculture, and the military conquest needed to hold that land. The result? A strictly rigid class system divided basically into soldiers and farmers. And boom, there it is. This perfectly proves our initial formula. Geography dictates the economy, and the economy creates the social classes. To wrap up today's explainer, I have a quick exit slip task for you. Using all those notes you've meticulously taken today, I want you to answer this question in your notebooks. What is the connection between a region and its economy? Think about Athens. Think about Sparta. Think about Pennsylvania and New York City. And as you write down your answer, I want you to reflect on this really provocative thought. If the very ground we stand on shapes the jobs we do and the social classes we fall into, how much of human destiny is really just a matter of where on the map we happen to be born? Good luck with your answers, students, and as always, keep questioning the world around you.